Let's talk death taxes. I'm Taylor Kaspar, owner and managing attorney of Legacy Estate Planning, where we help people make empowered choices about their lifetime finances so they can leave the legacy they truly deserve. So, I want to talk to you about death taxes, also commonly referred to as the inheritance tax or the estate tax. Now, death taxes is just what I'm going to call them for the purposes of this video, but every state and locale is going to have some different verbiage to discuss it. Essentially, what is a death tax? It is when there is a taxation on the transfer of wealth from one generation to the next generation because of somebody's death. So the government has enacted codes, rules, and laws that say that when somebody passes away and leaves a certain amount of money, the government is entitled to take a tax on that. Federally, as of the time of this recording, the individual estate tax or death tax is $12.92 million per person. And then in the state of Minnesota, we also have a death tax or an estate tax that right now is about $3 million. Also, federally, there is something called portability. So if you're a married person, then you and your spouse have a little bit over $25 million as a couple to play with as wiggle room to stay under that estate tax or death tax exemption amount. But on the state level in Minnesota, we do not have portability, so it's 3.1 million for spouse A and it's 3.1 billion for spouse B. And if that's an issue because one spouse has a lot more than the other spouse, then there needs to be some planning around what to do to minimize or eliminate those taxes upon death. Now, it's important to understand what is taxed. A lot of people float around these misconceptions and untruths about what it is that gets taxed. And many people think that if your assets are in a trust or, somehow sheltered, or if there's a certain character of asset, that they are not counted for the purposes of a death tax. Take life insurance, for example. Because life insurance typically passes tax-free to the beneficiary, a lot of people wrongly think that it doesn't count towards the overall death tax that's paid when somebody passes away. In Minnesota, we utilize something called the augmented estate. So that means whatever's in your trust, whatever is a non-probate asset like those retirement accounts, and that life insurance money is counted or countable when we're talking about what is the overall size of the estate, that augmented estate, when the government comes to assess how much tax is due and owed to the state of Minnesota and then ultimately to the federal government. So that means that if you want to limit or eliminate estate taxes or death taxes, you have to come up with some other mechanisms and some other ideas for driving the value of the estate down. So when it's time to figure out how much money is in that augmented estate, it's at or below the threshold. Say, I'll just start transferring everything during my lifetime to my children. Well, you may drive the value of your estate below the estate tax threshold by doing that, but you need to be careful because of a couple things. One, there is a lifetime gift tax exclusion that you have to count when you're thinking about giving gifts. So you can't give unlimited gifts free of tax through your lifetime, right? Even if every gift that you give is underneath the annual gift tax exclusion, which right now is $18,000. If you do too many of those gifts to too many people and you cross that lifetime exclusion, which ties into your estate exclusion as well, or your death tax exclusion as well, you're still going to get some sort of gift, death, inheritance type of tax assessed after you're gone. The other reason you want to make really strong considerations before you just start giving things away during your lifetime is that there are lifetime tax consequences to making gifts. So like I just said, you can only give $18,000 per person each year to a child, a friend, a family member, what have you. So if I have 4 kids, I can only give each of them $18,000 per year each year before I run into a gift tax issue where I'd have to pay taxes, or they would have to pay taxes on that gift. It would have to be reported to the IRS and the state that way. So you can't just give it all away for that reason. Another reason is that if you have things like real property or certain types of valuation, so real property, homes, cabins, second properties, vacant land, farmland, things like that, there are tax basis issues that must be considered because it can cause a problem when it comes time to sell. So if I own a home, I've owned it more than 2 years, my home has risen in value, it's my primary homestead, and I go to sell it, I don't pay any capital gains. But if I go to transfer that home lifetime to my children, they're not going to have an unlimited, amount that they can make on the house, right? At the time that we make that transfer, they're going to get basis in the home. So they're going to get like a value for what the home is worth to them, or, almost like how much did they pay for it, kind of a concept. And then when they go to sell it, if the house sells for more than the tax basis, they'll have to pay capital gains on the home. So your transfer of the real property during life can cause a different tax implication upon sale. So you want to be really knowledgeable and knowing that you can't just beat the tax system by giving all your stuff away now. During life, you might be causing just a different set of issues than the one you might have if you just pay the death tax. I don't say all that to say that lifetime gifting is bad. It's certainly not. Done thoughtfully with the right considerations, good knowledge, input of attorneys and CPAs and other professionals like financial advisors, you could come up with a very, very good lifetime gifting strategy that could meet and serve your needs. And that is one way that people are able to limit the taxation and what gets paid to the federal government and the state government upon their death. Some other things that people consider when they're thinking about how to minimize, limit, avoid taxes is trust-based planning. Now, just throwing everything in a trust is not going to eliminate the taxes, but if you do it in certain ways, like maybe you have some asset shifting between the spouses on the death of the first spouse, maybe you put some of the money in an irrevocable trust and you remove it from your estate entirely and you give up the rights to it during your lifetime, which has some gifting implications, but maybe you want to do that. Then, you can start to remove some assets from your estate over time. Other people do employ lifetime giving or gifting to charity because your charitable contributions, if done to appropriate organizations, can be tax-free, right? You can give a lot of money away to charity and that would lower the amount of your estate. It would also it wouldn't act like a gift where if you give more than $18,000 to charity, there's no gift tax on that. You're free to give to charity till your heart's content. So you may consider coming up with some charitable causes that you would love to support if it's a value of yours to maybe support a specific charity as opposed to paying a death tax when you're gone. Other things that you can do is you can build assets and build certain wealth for other family members, or you can alleviate some payments of things that your family members might need. So certain family members do have the right without taxation to, a grandparent can pay off a direct family member's, they can pay for their college. So they could turn around and say, I want, Jimmy to go to, this university and pay money directly for education to the institution and not pay taxes on that as if it were a gift. Medical debt can also be paid, and then you can do some building of retirement wealth like IRAs or things like that you can build up for others without paying gift taxes on those transactions and having that money effectively removed from your estate so that your estate is staying at or below the death tax threshold. This can be some really complex stuff. So before you run out and start freaking out about paying taxes to the state of Minnesota because maybe with your retirement and your life insurance and your investment portfolio and your real estate, you are at $3 million or more. But before you start running out and throwing everything away and worrying about that, you want to make sure that you have appropriate guidance because of the fact that the tax code is complex and there's so many options available to you. Some might fit you better than others. So if you found value in this video and this meant something to you, I hope you keep watching as we dive deeper into some of these complex topics around your estate. And of course, make sure to like this video and subscribe to this channel so you never miss fresh news from me.